My name is Benedict O'Looney. I'm an architect working here in Peckham. We're in the old waiting room, Peckham Rye Station, a room that we've been opening up and restoring in pieces these last 10 years, most recently building a stair up here. I've been working with AVR London for a long time and have happy memories of working with Joe at Grimshaw, where I kind of came up as an architect, working there for 6 years back in the 90s and early 2000s. And so Joe and I used to collaborate quite a lot on our projects at Grimshaw's, and then in recent decades set up my own practice. One of the things that we love to do at Benedict O'Looney Architects is work on historic buildings and find ways to bring them forward into the 21st century. I'm a keen sketcher, and drawing and exploring the buildings of London and further afield has a massive influence and a big creative input into the architecture that we do. I'm just back from a summer's cycling and sketching tour in August. And one of the things that really caught my eye was the mighty Keble College by William Butterfield. And so there, in addition to making a little perspective sketch, I took some time to do a measure drawing of some of the brick patterning there, which fires the brick designs that we're working on with AVR London at the Purley Mosque and at the Royal Bell. So here, a sketch that I made of a kind of almshouse in Warwick called Lord Leicester's Hospital. And in addition to trying to work out a kind of perspective drawing, you can see I've made a little section here looking at the interesting way that the hospital interlocks with the city gates and the quite sharp topography as you approach Warwick from the west. The Purley Mosque is our third significant mosque project. We've worked on a few other ones too. The brief was really interesting, to create a modern British mosque, and there had been a planning consent for a 5-story block of flats on this site, so we had a very distinct envelope that we were working within. There's a strong idea of a trabeated, almost colonnaded front elevation. We really like light and dark, shadow, chiaroscuro. And so we wanted to have a kind of rather deep facade with columns. And then the Islamic kind of thing comes in as a great big minaret next to this colonnaded facade. Initially the minaret was detached from the facade, and then the client kind of needed it embedded, and so we've kind of got a hybrid building. Another thing that's been really exciting about exploring Purley and designing a big new public building for Purley is the wonderful interwar townscape of Purley Town Centre, which has these lovely Tudor revival buildings, some nice Victorian buildings, some excellent interwar architecture. And so we use that as an important springboard for what we're trying to do, which is a colourful, very cheerful brick-clad building. Because we needed to get daylight into the flat surrounding, we couldn't have a kind of rectilinear back elevation, and so I thought it would be fun to have a curved form here. And I love the way that it kind of gently references ancient Byzantine architecture or ancient mosques, the idea of an apsidal termination to the northern end of this project here. So it's really fun to take powerful ideas in traditional architecture and bring them to a modern mosque. The Royal Bell is one of the venerable buildings in Bromley Town Centre. It was built initially in the 17th century and then rebuilt by the mighty Ernest Newton, one of the great late Victorian architects, a protege of Norman Shaw. And now we're trying to revive it. It's been closed for about 10 years. And in order to bring the building up to modern standards and the kind of minimum rooms that make modern hotels viable, we had to add about 50 rooms. One of the great challenges in the Royal Bell project was trying to understand how to extend vertically and extend behind a new building to complement this really wonderful bit of late 19th century architecture. So what we've done is we kind of looked at basically early 20th century industrial architecture, the factories of Voisey and other architects working in the London area, and have come up with a kind of new, sort of rather open, framed kind of architecture with arches, which we thought would bring the arches from the historic building into the new building. The Royal Bell has this amazing ballroom which kind of forms a buffer between this new vertical element and the high street and the ancient parish church across the street. So it's quite an interesting sequence as you move through the building, and there's a lot of fabulous timber paneling and sort of Jacobean ceilings, Renaissance inspired ceilings in the listed 1898 building. And so we wanted to bring some of that quite lively spirit into the new structure. We've reimagined some of the fabulous Morris papers that would have undoubtedly been on the walls in here. In fact, some of the photographs that we have show wallpapers very similar to what we've deployed here. And so we're really looking forward to restoring the interiors and then coming up with a sympathetic new architecture, I think both modern, but an architecture that responds to this incredible historic context of Ernest Newton's 1898 Royal Bell.